High income and terrible financial habits. What are the financial habits that high income earners have that really keep them in a bad financial position? Stay with me. So, as a financial advisor, I work with people from all walks of life. And one person or one group of people that I regularly encounter that I am very curious about are people who have really high incomes, but really low net worths. And they've been earning this income for some time, and they really don't have an explanation for why their net worth is so low. And I've worked with a couple of clients who were in this situation. And after working with them for several years, I can tell why they're high income but very low net worth. So, definitely, if you are starting out, you do not want to fall into any of these traps. They're all very easy traps to fall into. And these are the reasons why, as a financial advisor, wealth manager, I can tell that someone is high income, low net worth, and likely will remain in that situation for the foreseeable future. So, first, they don't use their 401k at their job. Now, there's a few very high net worth, very high income people who may not use the 401k. But if you're a high income but low net worth, the company 401k is an easy place to begin, especially if you are receiving a company match. There's just no reason for you not to participate in the company's 401k plan. So, something that really triggers my imagination is when someone tells me they are not participating in the 401k plan and they can't really explain why. Usually, I advise them to immediately start participating in the 401k plan, at least up to the match. Unless they have some really compelling reason why they're not participating, they already have several overfunded 401ks, their retirement is going to come from a completely different source or some other explanation, that's a very easy win that they can set up immediately. The next thing, someone who's high income but low net worth, they're generally not paying themselves first. They generally have a list of bills that they go through every single month, everything from the mortgage to the cars to student loans to children's education to electricity, everything. But they are not on the list. They do not pay themselves first. And so whatever money comes in is immediately spent, and they have no accounting for it at the end of the year where all this money went. Now, this could be a pretty easy fix depending on the budget. We can set aside a couple of $1,000 to go into investments or savings. But a lot of problems that people have in this category of high income but low net worth is that they're living up to the hilt. Basically, every paycheck is spent as soon as it's received. They have to balance it carefully between the two paychecks to make sure that everything is paid. But basically, nothing is left over at the end of the month, and nothing will ever be left over at the end of the month because basically they're living above their means. So, this is a more difficult issue that requires budgeting and takes time to resolve. And it's hard because people often don't want to resolve it, right? Their lifestyle is locked in. Their kids are going to a certain school, they're living in a certain neighborhood, they're driving a certain car. They don't want to make the compromises necessary to have extra money at the end of the month. And on some level, I understand it. Budgeting can be very uncomfortable when you've been given a blank checkbook to create the life of your dreams. But if the family wants to create wealth is built in excess, and if you're living up to the hilt, there's not much that we can do. You have more of a chance of building wealth if you earn $50,000 a year, but you only spend $30,000 a year and the other 20,000 goes into investments versus if you earn $500,000 a year, you're spending $550,000 a year. It's an intractable position to hold. So sometimes people are willing to do the work, but oftentimes people are not. And then there's just not much to be done. They're going to be forever behind the eight ball chasing wealth. They have the income to do it, but they just don't have the desire or the will to make the changes necessary in their lives in order to make wealth a possibility. Next, they're not looking for ways to save on taxes, or they don't think that they can save on taxes. There's certain parts of the tax code that are just set. And when a person gets standard deductions and have pretty standardized W-2 income, there may not be much wiggle room to change things in order to optimize their tax situation. But sometimes there is, and it's just a matter of meeting with the accountants in a consulting capacity and asking the right questions to see if they can do things throughout the years that can help them save on taxes. Once you're a very high income earner, meaning you cross the 350, 400 threshold, taxes just become brutal. You're probably paying anywhere from 35 to 50% of your income in taxes. And if there's a way that you can bring that down consistently, you're ahead. So, not looking for ways to save on taxes is a big mistake. And you can rectify that through meeting with an accountant in a consulting capacity to help you figure out ways to potentially save on taxes. Next, not negotiating. Negotiating takes time and skill. There are certain things that you can negotiate on. We're not a culture. American culture is typically not a culture of negotiation. Certain cultures, like I think Indian culture is a big negotiation culture, but Americans were not taught to ask for a lower price or a better deal. And so I have clients who are high income earners, everything from apartments to cars to different medical procedures. They don't think to ask for reduce prices. So if you don't negotiate or at least ask the question, the answer will forever remain no. So if you're in a position where you have a high income but a low net worth, remember that some things in our society you can negotiate on, and you should take those as an opportunity to negotiate a better deal for yourself or for your family. Also, in terms of jobs, negotiating raises, negotiating better pay, negotiating better salary, that should always be part of your experience in the workplace, is negotiating for more for yourself and asking outright for more. Another huge mistake high income earners typically make is they think that high income is going to last forever. Typically, high income earners earn a very high income for a period of time, and that may be for 5 years, and then something changes and their income drops. They may change jobs, they may start a business, they may switch roles where they're not paid quite as much. But it's very rare to see someone who has an extremely high income throughout their entire career. It's usually ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And these people, you have to take advantage of the peaks and prepare for the valleys. And a lot of very high income earners just don't do that. They're going to assume that they're going to go from peak to peak forever. This creates problems with saving, investing, and conceptualizing a future. Also, like when times are really hard because they really didn't save anything or really didn't invest anything. And when times are good, that they are great. And if you're a high income earner but low net worth, you really have to pull yourself out of this boom bust cycle of thinking about money and have a more consistent plan for your money for those good years and for those bad years so that you can continue with your goal of building up your net worth and building wealth. This brings us to the next point: no savings and no investing. I've met many people with incomes over $350,000 who have absolutely nothing to show for it. And it's because they are living up to the hilt. They have no savings, no investments, no retirements, anything. And once that income comes to an end, they lose that job. There's no way that they can replicate that lifestyle, not by a long shot. And so it's very important, if you are in this predicament of having high savings and low net worth, is that or high earning and low net worth, is that you have adequate savings and that you have a plan for investment and you carry that plan out. Next one, not paying off debts. I know people with very high income who have an absolutely staggering amount of debt, and the attitude is that they'll get to it someday. And meanwhile, the past 3 years have took by and they really haven't chipped away at the debt or really done anything substantial to put the debt to rest. It's challenging because you see the giant income and the giant paychecks, and you're like, with a couple of paychecks, you could pay this debt off forever and close out this account. And the person just doesn't want to do it. The person just doesn't really have incentive to pay off the debt. This usually happens with student loan debts. It's usually student loan debt. People feel differently about consumer debt or cars, but student loans, people will let student loans rot forever versus working hard, hunkering down, taking a few years and just paying it off. And people end up in these wild situations where they've been paying on the same debt for 20 years and the debt hasn't gone down because they're only making the minimum payments when they're earning $350,000 a year and can reasonably pay it off if they were so inclined. Don't be one of those people. Don't be one of those people. You don't want to take that debt with you to your grave, whether it's student loan, car debt, mortgage debt, credit card debt. There needs to be a plan to pay it off. If there's no plan to pay it off, you need to create a plan to pay it off. And finally, one of the biggest mistakes I see of high income earner is not focusing on net worth. Usually when people end up in these situations where they have very high income but non-existent or even negative net worth, they're not paying attention to their net worth. They're just not paying attention to it. They're paying attention to their next paycheck and their income. And that's a huge mistake. That's a huge mistake. You should pay less attention to the next 2 weeks in a paycheck and your income and more attention to your net worth, because that's where you are building the real wealth, is with your net worth. So there you have it. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. And if you found this information useful, please share and subscribe.